When I was a kid, we never made a big deal about Friday night dinner. Now the whole family shows up.
Shabbat Shalom.
My brothers, our wives and kids. 11 of us now, with our parents.
The two of them, they're in the city with everybody.
Dennis, brother, Dennis. Joey, would you mind to wear a yarmulke?
Well,
Don't start up, Joe, because that is... Alan, you do go ahead with your things. Don't stop.
What do you want to wear?
Nuri, give me this, Nuri.
Everybody rise, please. Will you please stand up? Vayhiere, vayboker. Yom hashishi vaychulu hashamayim v'aretz v'chol tzuvam. Vaychal Elohim b'yom hashvi malachta asher asa.
From the refugee camp in Cyprus, my parents moved to Israel, where I was born.
You want some challah?
And from Israel, we moved to the Bronx.
A big piece or a little piece?
A big piece.
When we finally settled down in this house in Brooklyn, me and my brothers were teenagers already. We were just about the same age our parents were during the war.
In New York, that's the way they call it.
I've tried to imagine my parents as kids before the Holocaust. I want to ask you, Mom, about when you were growing up, your childhood. Looking back on it, do you think you had a happy childhood? Do you have happy memories about growing up?
Yeah, I have happy memories of it, but I have very sad memories when the war started.
I'm talking about before the war.
I remember every year of my life. I was an apprentice for 3 years. I was working very hard, like a slave. A minimum of food and working a lot of hours.
You grew up with her?
No,
I was an
they
apprentice in her
they
town,
know each other.
in Munkach. And
I thought Jack was asking her.
no, I'm helping, and she's gonna still talk about it. I know that.
You're helping her describe her own growing up when you didn't grow up with her?
No, I'm not helping her, but I feel it along with her.
But you can't assume that you had similar experiences growing up.
No, but that's right to say when you're young, you know, you always have happy memories. When
Joe, do you have happy memories growing up?
Not quite.
So, you know,
Oh, some.
there goes your theory.
Some. No, that's it, you know. It's a mixture of memories. I wouldn't exactly say happy. I'm actually interested in hearing what Ma has to say because
Ask
it
something.
would just be interesting to me.
Talk. No.
Nobody seems to be very anxious to talk about their childhoods around here.
Why not? Why don't you ask me? I
Yes.
could talk about it.
I don't have to ask you. I'll ask Mom and you'll give me the answer.
There's one thing that always, all those years, bothers me. Not bothers me. It's always on my mind. I never will know that how my mother really, when she died, because when we arrived to Auschwitz, when they said I went left and right, and when I went with my sister, and my mother went to the other side with a tree, with my little sister, with her little brother. And I will never find out, never know, did she die after 10 minutes or after an hour, after 2 hours? The crematories was burning all the time, but I will never find out, never know when she died.
Grab this one.
My parents were among the few who survived. I've known about the concentration camps as long as I can remember. But I can honestly say I never used to think about it too much.
Watch your head there.
Joe's the oldest of the 3 brothers, and the first in our family to suggest to me that we all might have been affected by what happened to our parents.
I think we meant to move it over a little bit.
Okay. I don't know how different we are from other families, but I do know what sets us apart. And my discussions with Joe usually come around to the question of how, or even if, we can ever really isolate the impact the Holocaust had on our lives. Why do you think you became a painter?
You know, I started reading about painters' lives, and I got kind of intrigued by their difficulties and hardships, you know.
But you don't think that the struggle that you were attracted to had anything to do with the struggle that you felt your parents went through?
No, not as directly as you put it. No, I don't think so. I mean, it's, I don't personally feel I have the vantage point to really say at what point, in fact, my indirect experience of the Holocaust is relevant to anything that I do. Because I myself didn't go through it. I did not. I never did. In that sense, I'm no different than anybody else.
But you grew up with that imagery of the Holocaust.
Well, no, I didn't grow up with imagery. I mean, it was not on the walls of our house.
That was,
I have a
he was
question
too
for
young.
for
Yeah,
Joe.
that's it, yeah.
When can you remember the first time you knew that your parents were in a concentration camp or
Well,
there was terrible
yeah.
violence in our family? How old were you, and do you remember?
I had known, I don't know how, but I had known that there was something terrible that happened. There were references made, I think, by Mother, that she had gone through something terrible, and in light of what she had gone, it was a tremendous sacrifice, as though she had a hard time with me. I wasn't an easy child to raise, apparently. So when she had a hard time with me, it would come to light that she had had a hard time already, and she didn't want to have a further hard time. There was mention of Hitler. That I had known at a very early age.
Like how early do you think?
Oh, God, I don't know. I'd say kindergarten. The kids who played on the street, I don't
Where
know.
was this?
In Haifa. It was popular to, say, start a fire. And you never started a fire with the other kids unless you had an effigy in the middle of the fire. And that effigy was Hitler.
They took us in a place in minutes. My clothes was on everything. In a minute, I saw myself already also, without hair, everything. Then one day, at night, it looked like the whole, like it's a fire. And the smell and everything. And everybody was running out. And then the capo said, you know, with the stick, she said, come on, do you see that fire? She said, you are talking about your parents. Your parents were burned. You didn't even arrive to Auschwitz, to the cell. They were already burned. And remember, the minute you arrived, in the minute your parents and your children, whoever went on the left side is dead.
To some extent, I felt it was a freaky thing. It's like, how do you talk about it? It's like, I would mention this subject as a matter of fact. You know, oh, yeah, you know, my parents went through it. You know, it's like, where do your parents go? And I didn't quite understand why nobody else would react similarly. I mean, it wasn't a matter of fact to other people. It was like, mostly people did not want to talk about it. We're not interested. Most people are not interested in hearing about it or discussing it. They don't understand it. They don't know how to react. I mean, should we feel guilty? Should we feel sorry for this guy? I mean,
I was always going even try to wash myself and when Mengele came to stay straight or not to be too red because you were too red, it wasn't good, and not to look at him just too straight, and you were just fighting for our survival.
In our family, the Holocaust wasn't something you found out about. It was more like something you just knew. It's not as though I grew up thinking of my parents as Holocaust survivors. Only now I wish I could remember what went through my mind when I used to hear about it as a kid. And I started talking to other children of survivors to find out what growing up was like for them. Shelley's an old friend from art school. Her mother survived Bergen-Belsen.
The first few years that I was hearing it, it was like telling a story like, you know, like anybody could sit down and say, oh, I went shopping and I did this and I did that. It was like not a real story. It was just like a comment about something. And I remember telling friends the stories she would tell me and they would flip out. They couldn't believe their ears. And I would say, gee, you know, it's shaking them up. How come it's not shaking me up? But then, like at a later age, the truth, the real truth is those stories really excite me. As much as they're painful and sad, there's something very incredible and very alive about them. That, you know, they're really terrible stories, but yet there's something really special. My mother would tell the stories, and I'd want to hear more all of the time. I want to hear it.
And Frank came to Bergen-Belsen while I was there, because I think I told you that we were the first 250 women in Bergen-Belsen. Because she was also very young, she was brought into our tent. Of course, later on, they all disappeared. They were all killed. And I can honestly say, for my city, which was a huge city in Poland, one of the largest cities, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Lodz alone had 300,000 Jews. There are no survivors, female survivors my age. I think I'm the only one.
Like, first you just hear it, it's just a story, and it's not real. But then one day you realize that, hey, this really happened, and it was really my mother. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that everybody's mother wasn't in a Holocaust.
1, 2, 3.
Because we weren't there, we try to understand what happened to our parents in any way we can.
6.
When I met Yoram at an acting workshop in Tel Aviv, he was developing the role of an SS officer based on an actual diary found after the war. It was incredible to me that a child of survivors would play the part of a Nazi. But when I tried to make a connection with his parents' Holocaust experience, he was reluctant to talk about it.
I have an aversion to this whole obsession with the Holocaust. I suppose it might have some kind of therapeutic value. I know a lot of people feel a need to deal with it. But we're still so close to it all. How many years ago was it? I think it's much too early to really deal with it, to analyze how we feel about it. You know, understand what went on and how it affects us. I think the best thing we can do is just live with it now. We know what happened. We're not going to forget it.
19 und 20.
It's like a fairy story, a bad fairy story. It's so horrible that I can't really imagine it. I just had mum and dad.
Peter and I grew up on opposite sides of the world. After the war, his parents resettled in Australia, where he was born and became a doctor. In background, at least, we're two very different people. But as soon as we met, I felt like I'd known him all my life.
My parents had everything taken away from them, both materially and, let's say, spiritually, in terms of family, friends, home, village, country. And because I had everything taken away from them, I became very important for them. And all the pressure was on me to do all the things that they, for obvious reasons, could never have achieved. And when somebody gets this sort of tremendous pressure to fulfill not only their own lives, but to fulfill the lives of their parents, then it's such a heavy situation, such a difficult situation, that when one doesn't succeed, the feelings of either guilt or worthlessness are really tremendous.
I never wanted to go back to see my house. I was afraid to get that shock and to see my house where I was growing up with the family and all that, and to come back and to see in that same house somebody else and my family is perished. I was in the first labor camps the time that I got a goodbye postcard with a few words only saying, "We are being taken away and we don't know where. If we will have a chance, we will be in touch with you." And since then I didn't hear and I didn't see none of them. Two sisters with their babies and youngsters and all that, they didn't have time to live and nothing. And they all were taken. And I was going around very much hurt, and I had my own problems too. I was also in such a danger with my life that my life wasn't worth not a penny. Any time I could be eliminated either with a bayonet or with a... Sometimes they were feeling a pity even to spend a bullet. So we survived one sister and one brother and myself. We survived.
Do you remember your parents well?
Yeah, sure. I love them. I love them both. Of course, you feel more close to the mother than the father. I would be ready to go myself for her to the gas chamber or anywhere.
I loved my mother. My mother never even said that. It was, like I said before, very nice and quiet. I don't know, I don't think none of us are like that. My sister or I, but she was very, very nice.
Our parents were left without families, without homes, without even a burial site to mourn the parents they lost. Whenever my mother would come to Israel, she'd visit Rachel's tomb.
Rachel was always my weak spot. I somehow always feel sorry that she is lying separate because Jacob loved her so much. And I feel very bad that Leah is lying near Jacob and not Rachel. And whenever I come near, I always cry. I don't know why. And she's my favorite from all our mothers, from Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. But I like her. And for some reason, while I was standing here, all of a sudden I saw my mother, I see the concentration camp, I see everything whenever I come here.
Karim, light the candles. Blow it out, blow it out. More. Did you not do the hand twice? Okay, now come here, let's light the candles. Do it like that.
Your mother's gonna die one day. She's not gonna be there. I wonder about that with my mother. I mean, I'm thinking, you know, I love her a lot and stuff, and sometimes I find myself saying, really, thank God she's here now. And it's not like I'm that close with her that I see her all the time. I don't. But I'm saying to myself, you know, if she gets hurt or she's just not here one day, I have a million questions. I'll never find the answers unless I ask now.
I do have a question. What did your mother do? You said she's the sole breadwinner of the household.
Oh, yeah.
What did she do?
My mother was a seamstress and she was sewing clothing for the peasants of the neighborhood.
What was your mother's name?
Ida. Ida. And she was
What
working...
was your father's name?
Joseph Aaron.
Was Joe named after him?
Joe is after Joseph, after my father, and Mordechai is after your mother's father. We both lost all our parents, and we wanted him to share with the name of her father and my father.
How do you feel about being named after our grandfathers?
Truthfully, I didn't quite know that I was named after both fathers. I knew that I was named after somebody. I never quite saw it like that. The loss of the parents is a very important thing, and I think it's a need to revitalize their memory of the lost one and to reaffirm their memory of someone lost is very dear to them.
I decided I don't want to live no more. I wanted to go with my father. But the Nazi soldiers wouldn't let me get on the truck. They said,
When I'd listened to Shelley's Uncle Ziggy, I wondered about the relatives I never knew and the stories they never told me.
But I wasn't able to eat because I was choked with the loss of my father.
And then I had a boyfriend. I didn't know in that time that he was working in the crematorium. And whoever worked in the crematory, they were working only for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, it was their turn.
I went down on my knees and said, God, if you are really there, show us your might, a miracle, you know, like Moses performed miracles. And there was no answer.
And I was saying to myself, no, I cannot rely on that God should help me or what. I must see and save myself whenever I have a chance and however I can to save my own life, if I have that chance.
Then they took us to the showers. They told us to take off the clothes, and nobody wanted to go into the showers because we knew the showers are gas. And the couples, they start to hit us on the head, everything, get into the showers. And we said no, and we didn't want, we were screaming. And then they pushed us into the showers, and then we saw that hot water came, and there was not gas, and everybody got a sliced bread.
And I heard my sister say, look, this guy walking towards us looks like Ziggy. And I heard my brother say to her, why do you torture me like this? You know Ziggy is dead. And I said, I'm not dead, I'm alive. And we start running towards each other. You know, like the commercial, the closer she gets, the better she looks.
It's really astounding to think about it, you know, to end up being rushed into some sort of gate, deprived of all human dignity, someone pointing finger, deciding your fate.
They were playing beautiful,
and behind that, an orchestra playing a waltz.
Beautiful, like a concert. And we walked in.
Yeah, it's, you know, something's, you know, how can you comprehend that?
They didn't take away my shoes because I had a boyfriend and he made me those shoes. And I was so happy. My first thought was, I'm going to tell my mother how lucky I am that I have my shoes. And then they took us into Auschwitz.
I don't think it's possible for our mother to actually visually recollect her actual experience as it was. I don't think she could have survived that experience without being selective about what she remembered. The experience she went through as a teenager in a death camp, I mean, let's face it, what are you going to really remember and survive somehow?
I'm looking at Mom and Dad, I'm looking at two people who went through hell. They got married at a young age. They didn't have any parents to help them out. They got some kind of family together. They made a lot of mistakes. The overwhelming feeling I have was an incredible love for these people, an admiration that they can bring up a family and give them so much love in spite of the rough times that they're coming out of. They were just kids themselves.
I think you're assuming that their experience in the Holocaust would have been so debilitating that they could not have raised a family, and that it's almost miraculous that they had a family and raised it and offered their kids love. In those circumstances, that was hardly the ideal place to start having kids. They had me in a detention camp without a home, without family, without relatives. It's hardly a place to have a kid and to start raising a family.
We were very young, that's true. Really young when we got married and when I was expecting a child. But I think that at the time, maybe the way Joey says, he's right. Because when I got pregnant, I was traveling illegal at night in trucks from one place to another, and from Austria to Germany towards Israel. So he's right, it wasn't the place to get pregnant and build a family, and then ending up in Cyprus. He's right on that. But another thing, I think this was the most beautiful thing that ever happened.
Obviously, our mother was very ecstatic when she had me, and she says so. But it's also, I think to me, obvious that her ecstasy, so to say, is like a little unreal. She had expectations of me that are maybe perhaps unreal too. When they looked at me, I think they saw it as a saving grace, you know, a newborn infant, such a magical thing.
Do you think Mom and Dad did a good job bringing you up?
I think that's an unfair question. I think they did a job. I mean, I'm here.
I couldn't do a better job. I was doing everything the best I could, and
In terms of love and
in
attention.
terms of love and attention, I did everything that I could with sacrificing.
Do you feel that you were ready to be a father when you
I
became a father?
wanted very badly to try to make up for my family that I lost, and to try to.
More than anything else, what did having a child mean for you? What did you see when you looked at that baby?
What
did it mean for
what a
you?
father can see in his child, all the pride and all the happiness and all that, it brightens up the house and all that.
This was the nicest thing that could happen after. It's like after like a darkness, after such a tragedy, after such that I went through such hell, and then all of a sudden being married and having, when I found out that I'm going to have a baby, I was the happiest person in the world. And when I had a baby, I couldn't believe it. I was so devoted to, he was my baby, and he was also, it seems to me like I'm just playing with my doll again. It gave us a new beginning.
A new life.
A new life.
Did Joe fulfill those dreams and
all the darkness was not completely forgotten, but it was like a new beginning.
More in the past.
And he was loved that none of you was loved as much, because he was the first baby in the whole family. And my sister and dad's sisters and the cousins, all of them,
Can I talk in
he
also?
was just like a little king.
When they had me as a baby, they had something in their mind instead. They didn't have a real baby.
We were missing something in a grasp and a binding of a family which we were split away from.
So let me get this
Nurturing
straight.
that.
I'm just trying to figure out what this baby's role was. He was a light for you. He was a dream. He represented tens and dozens of people
Exactly
who died.
so. Exactly
And he was
so.
the first one in the whole family
He
that was born.
represented the
But did
all
you
the
ever
rest
think
of
about
the family
the
that
fact
we lost.
that a kid growing up under those circumstances
This was only
is
when-
going to have such a heavy burden on him that it's going to be hard for him?
I couldn't feel that a thing like this should be hard for him. He should represent. Yes, he did represent to me all the rest of the parish in my family.
He never knew me. I mean, he always saw what he wanted to see. And when he doesn't understand why I'm not quite what he'd like me to be, I guess, is he's saying, gee, he's strange. He can't figure me out. What he can't figure out is that I might be my own person instead of what he might have expected me
God
to
forbid.
be. Well, yeah, God forbid.
You remember what I said to you? I think it was a Friday. I came home from school. I said, that's it. I'm moving out. I'm leaving home.
I just didn't believe it, because I felt that I would have wanted to stay with, had I had parents. Maybe because I was alone all these years. I couldn't imagine that anyone would want to do it just for the fun of it. So I didn't think that you meant it. I thought it'll just be a novelty and it'll wear off and you come home to Mama.
Yeah, I wanted to be alone. I really wanted to be alone.
Why?
I never got along all that well around here, as you know. You know, I mean, there were a lot of good times, I have to admit, but there were a lot of things that I had to work out. You know that.
The world Shelley grew up in must have seemed so odd to her mother, who told me a story I think she really wanted to be telling Shelley.
You know, Jack, there's a little story I want to relate to you. There was a little boy who lived in the same building we did. He was about a year old when his mother moved into the ghetto. He had no father, and his mother happened to have been blind. He was acting as her eyes, and at the age of 3, he had asked her, what is a choo-choo train? And she tried to explain to him as much as she could that there are such things as trains. Then he asked her, how big is the world? And she said to him, the world is only as big as one side of the ghetto to the other side of the ghetto. This child grew up always hungry, always cold, not knowing what an egg is, or not even knowing that there was a world outside the ghetto. And when the day finally came, when the Germans took us out of the ghetto, he was on the train with us. He cried all along, saying that he doesn't like the choo-choo, because the choo-choo was very cold and very crowded, and he was hungry. He cried for food. And my dad took the last piece of bread that he had, and he gave to this little boy. And the mother said, don't do that, because you'll be hungry afterwards. And I think that my father knew that that child will never live again, because he said, that's all right, let him once in his lifetime feel what it is to have food, enough to at least be satisfied for the moment. And of course, that was the last day of this child's life, because as we walked into the camp, immediately they took him to the gas chamber. And I often wonder, what was the point of this child's life altogether? He was born at the beginning of the war, lived 4 years in a ghetto where he knew nothing but hunger and cold. And he died hungry and cold. And as much as I miss my parents who were killed and the rest of my family, I truly suffer because of this little child, because there were many children I know, but I was close to that little boy. And I can only, I can't explain it even to my own children or to myself, how I feel about this little.
Do you look at that? Do you see that boy when you look at Shelley?
Always. When I looked at my children, I always saw that little boy. When my children cried because they got hurt or because they didn't get what they wanted, I didn't hear or see my children. I saw that little boy.
Do you really want to lay on other people this Holocaust business? How relevant, in fact, is it to your personal life? See,
I wish I could subtract the Holocaust from my family and really look at us as just three brothers, a mother, and a father. Because I worry that I might be using the Holocaust as an excuse.
Don't allow my own real feelings about them to surface.
At one time, I thought the Holocaust had nothing to do with my personality at all. And then I started thinking about it, and I saw some type of relevance, and perhaps I've gone a little bit too far with that. Maybe I have to go a little bit back. I don't know. But what I'm trying to arrive at is some kind of understanding and some type of perspective. It's obvious that it has something to do with who I am. I don't know to what extent it does.
Not everybody had parents who've been through the Holocaust.
Yeah, but everybody had parents, and everybody had problems with their parents, and there was always one issue or another, whether it was the Holocaust or whether it was having a father who's an alcoholic.
That's the distinction I'm trying to make. At what point is there a difference? I mean, where does the Holocaust come in with you?
I just know that it's something that's on my mind. I mean, I think about the Holocaust on a daily level.
On a daily level, you think about the Holocaust?
Yes, every single day. Every single day.
How the hell did it get to this point that you think about it? You never saw it. You never went through it. What does their experience have to do with you? They went through it. You did not.
But I went through growing up in a household where those were the stories and that was the imagery.
Their experience with the Holocaust ended when it ended. And anything past that is something they were laying on you.
I don't think they laid it on me, because it was enough for Mom or for Dad to just say a few words about their experiences and for me to have my own projections.
Well, that's laying it on you. They don't have to do it constantly.
Maybe I'm making excuses for my parents, too. But when I think about our family, I think about the Holocaust and how it could have affected who we are and how we get along with each other. And who's gone through something like that. For Joe, it's different. I think he feels that eventually we have to get past the Holocaust. That we can only feel more like a family if we deal with the emotions we have locked up inside.
Within the context of what they went through, it makes perfect sense to me.
But there you go again. You're always taking them off the hook because of what they went through. That excuses them from everything. But they went through that already. It's done. It's horrible. The difference between us and, say, other people is that in our case, the Holocaust has been used against us in terms of an instrument. It's like, it's made us feel guilty. And yet we couldn't really fight back in our case because you can't quite hold them responsible for anything because they went through this and they went through that, so you can't allow those feelings to surface.
I couldn't really accept the aspects of my parents that are in myself, the aspects of my mother that I share, the aspects of my father that I share. And somehow now I've managed to accept that. And I somehow have made a peace with my parents.
Peter lived up to his parents' expectations. He was a successful doctor and later moved his medical practice from Australia to Israel. But his license to practice medicine was revoked when the Israeli Department of Health discovered he'd been prescribing narcotics for himself.
A couple of times in my life, things have got to the stage where I really thought I couldn't go on. And one time was associated with a suicide attempt. I think that, like for me personally, my self-image is very important. And when my self-image got to a level where I could no longer look at myself, it was time to end it all.
No longer able to practice medicine, Peter took a job as an attendant at a home for the retarded in Jerusalem. He now feels the worst is behind him. He's married with a family of his own, and he's working to regain his license.
The work involves chiefly teaching people how to relate to one another and being a friend to them and in some way an educator.
Does it bother you, the fact that you used to be a doctor and now you're working?
No, it doesn't. It would have bothered me once, but somehow I feel that I'm quite happy in the work I do. It's given me quite a lot. And the other thing that helped me was to be able to come somewhere like Israel and to feel that in some way I belong here, that this was somewhere where I could put down roots, where I could get married and where I could raise a family and get some connection with who I was and what I was and my past, which for me personally is important.
I definitely have the most incredible drive and ambition. I mean, everything I do has a meaning for my making it as an artist. Everything.
What do you call those things when they're finished?
It's called a floor plan. It's a sculpture and a drawing. There's architectural studies. It's a duplicate of a home, but it's not exact. I mean, the perspective is all messed up. Things are upside down, right side up. First, I have to draw a space, and then I put it on wood, and then I have to carve it, and then I furnish it, and I have to go outside and get materials that are just like the things in the real place.
Every girl gave something, a piece of bread from which we made a little cake. The other girl used to work as a seamstress for the Germans, so she got pieces of material, and she made tiny little outfits, but tiny, real miniature. One of the girls carved a little table and chairs, and we had a little table full of these goodies.
I never heard that people were getting together making little tables, which is what I do as an artist. I never heard it. There's no, but yet we both did it. You did it probably at my age.
Yes, but you are doing it as an art form, and we did it as a, you know, a part of bringing back the good old days during the most horrible days. We always thought in terms of, you know, what was, not what is, because if you stop to think of what is...
You always tell me, never think of what was, think of what is. And you always tell me the opposite.
Well, because right now you're living in normal times. I'm talking about abnormal times where, you know, But in camps, we had to hold on to our dreams.
I hear she survived. One of the reasons is because of her beauty and her intelligence. She was supposed to be really gorgeous. I hear about it all the time from other people, how beautiful and intelligent she was. And I've even heard things like, oh, you'll never be as beautiful as her.
But you never felt that you were competing with her?
No, I wasn't competing with her. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know that it's a direct competition. Maybe it's like I'm her in a different way. Art is a field where one out of hundreds of thousands ever make it. And you could say that's surviving.
I can't let myself think about what happened to my parents while I'm working. If I did, there'd be no way I could get into the character of an SS officer. It's not as though I can identify with Anderson, but I will admit it feels good to play a Nazi. You act with power and emotion, things I'd never let myself do in my own life. I'm not afraid of Anderson. I enjoy playing him.
From Anderson's diary, Yoram began piecing together a picture of everyday life under the Third Reich. Using an abandoned amphitheater in Old Jaffa as his stage, he recreated for me the character of an elementary school teacher who would later become an officer in Hitler's SS.
Anderson is a terrible dresser. His clothes couldn't be less tasteful if he tried. Nothing goes. But more than that, each piece is so ugly by itself. Loud, crass. These are the clothes of a decadent Berlin. But Anderson is happy, carefree, a regular guy with a real sense of humor. And he's a man who knows how to get along in the world, a man of many faces. On the one hand, there's his class picture. He's such a nice-looking boy, German, blonde, not like me. He has blue eyes. His face is more noble than mine. And he has such a winning smile. He's a man who loves his life. He can't get enough of it. That's one side of Anderson. On the other hand, try to picture him in his uniform. He comes out onto the stage. This is his audience. He stands before them. These are his people. He's wild. His voice comes from deep inside, and he says to them, "Unser Führer siegt heim!" When he's before them, he's an animal. He's a great actor, full of anger, power, flesh and blood. But in his private life, he's a different man. He prepares for his cabaret. He's a witty guy. He might tap dance or imagine dancing a tango with his girlfriend. He takes her down, brings her up, then dips again. That's Anderson.
You once told me you played a concentration camp survivor. What was his name?
I don't remember his name.
We're not talking about, centuries. We're talking my mother's lifetime. We're not talking about hundreds of years difference. And if history repeats itself, what makes 30 or 40 years ago so different from today? It's really not. So we have a TV instead of a radio. Big deal.
So it still might happen.
I expect it to happen. I'm ready for it to happen.
After all has been said and done, Do you have any fears at all being a Jew today?
You always told me that, Shelley, it can happen again. Shelley,
I
it
just
might
want to know
happen
how
again.
you feel. In other words, I don't want to feel guilty that I had put a load on you, you know, because of my experiences.
Well, you did. You did. You put a load on me.
I thought I put you and Dad through a lot of things. When you used to get in trouble.
You shouldn't feel guilty at all, because this is part of growing up, and you were just, you just had problems like other people had.
I used to steal the car all the time.
Well, not
from
to
Dad.
steal it, to take it, but this wasn't...
I really stole it.
No, you took the car away for a day or so, but this is...
Well, it was more than a day, it was more like a week.
To take the car from a father is not called stealing.
We're almost there. We're not quite there yet, but we're almost there. A few more years.
Oh, you'll get there. You'll get there.
I'm glad you're telling me this now, because you always put it down. Shelley, why an artist? It's not enough money.
Well, that's that I put it down not because of art itself, but because of the struggle. Because it takes an awful lot of stamina and power and, you know, to make it in the art world. I didn't want to see you suffer in order to get somewhere.
You asked me before, why did I have to leave home?
Oh, yes, yes.
I'll
Not
tell
you didn't have to. That's
why I had to. What, you don't think I had to.
Right.
But I had to. You didn't push me around. You just put everything down that I ever did. If I wore red, why aren't you wearing blue? If I wore blue, why don't you wear red? If I talked on the phone, like, get off the phone. If I'm off the phone, why don't you call your friends up and go do something? What are you here for? And you didn't mean harm, I'm sure of it, but the kid in me was having a hard time. You said you didn't want me to struggle.
Well, do you think that it has anything to do with my past?
When I was a kid, I cried, why won't my mother help me? Why won't she be there when I need her? My friends from high school would say, boy, I wish I had your mother. Whenever I have a problem, I go right to her. You were there for people's problems. You were very giving and very, but when I had a problem, not now, I'm busy, ask me later, I have to go to work.
I plead guilty, yes.
To not being there when I needed you?
Yes, yes. But it had nothing to do with you, it had to do with my feelings. Because mentally, I wasn't ready to accept and love someone or something. Because through my experiences, every time I loved someone or something, I lost it. I still lived every day like, did you ever see someone at a railroad station with a suitcase and going somewhere? Well, my life at that time, when I first got married and had children, I still was at a railroad station. Still going somewhere, not knowing where. I know now that I was afraid to give my all. So I tried to keep you at a distance so I wouldn't get hurt again. Because I went through loving my parents and losing them. All the people that I would be in camps with and love, the next day they were gone. In the camps, you learn to just look out for number one. And you learn that you couldn't love because it would only destroy you. So even it carried over. When I got married and had children, it actually carried over that feeling of, you know, if I love too much, I'm gonna lose them.
I love you.
I think I owe all my children an apology. I don't know who owes me an apology.
biggest blow I can give to Hitler's intentions is to live my life to the fullest and to have as much joy out of life as I can. Not only have my parents survived, not only do I have children and they'll have children, the Jews are still alive, I'm still alive, and I try to make the best use out of every minute.
But you make it sound as though the war is still on, as though Hitler's still alive and that you're fighting him all of a sudden. You, in fact, indirectly are suffering from the Holocaust, but because it's been put upon you in a totally different way that it's been put upon them. It's been put upon them as a real experience, something that they had to use their own instincts and senses. It's been put upon you as something that borrowed in your mind in terms of guilt. Those are two different experiences. All I'm saying is, Jack, they went through it. It's a horrible thing. Let's see it as a tragedy that has happened. Let's not continue that sense of guilt about the whole thing. It's an irrational tragedy which has to be worked out, and I don't know how. I don't even know if it's rational to even talk about it. But what they did was lay a different kind of experience. We imagined a concentration camp experience that they went through and felt sorry for them.
I forgive them.
Forgive them? It has nothing to do with forgiveness. You're talking about feeling. You have no power to forgive. Your Holocaust experience has nothing to do with the actual death camps itself. It's a Holocaust experience that is entirely separate from the footage you see on TV and from any other thing that you may have read about it. Because what you're talking about is the Holocaust of the mind. It's the guilt and your imagination, your fantasy about what might have happened and what might have happened to you if you were in it, if you did not behave. It's a totally different Holocaust, Jack.
Azegmor Bashir Mizmor Chanukah HaMizbeach. Jonathan, open it up here.
My father's a tailor. When we lived in Israel, he made suits for Ben Gurion and Moshe Dayan. My mother's a teacher. The paintings in Joe's loft are his own. The Holocaust isn't an explanation for who we are. And it's not an answer for the problems we've had as a family. But I'm sure now it was the right place to start asking the questions.
I know, let me see. Oh, look at that.
I'm in awe of my parents. And when I look at them now, it's a miracle to me that my daughter has grandparents. Joe, I wanted to ask you a question. I know that you and Dad have had a lot of bitter feelings towards each other. If you knew that you had one final opportunity to say one final thing to Dad, if you can try to imagine that, what do you think you would say?
I would say that he never knew me.
What about you, Dad? If you had one thing to tell Joe, what would you tell him?
He is strange. What can I tell you? He is so different. We don't see things eye to eye.
May I ask something, Jack? How about to say this is the negative, but how about, let's say, some positive things?
Do you have a positive thing to say?
I think I did just like every other parents do. I tried my best. I raised
Are you satisfied with how
three
your kids turned
handsome
out?
sons and smart ones. And I think
Even Joey is smart.
Joey, I think that Joey is a good son. He tries to show outside differently, but he really is inside.
And underneath?
Underneath, he's a very fine,
Selfish person.
very.
I don't have a chance to communicate with him.